Welcome to Be Now for Tuesday, July the 11th. My name is Don McLeod, and I'm joined as usual by Faz. Faz, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Don. I enjoyed our break from last week.
Yes, we had a break. We had a few things we had to do. I want to show you my shirt I'm wearing here. See that?
Brampton now, bnow.ca. By the way, the website is bnow.ca. It's not Brampton now.
Right.
That's somebody else has that.
bnow.ca. I got that T-shirt. That's something
Does it
that you
fit
might...
you? Does it fit you, Don? It looks like it fits pretty good.
Oh, it fits pretty good, yeah.
Okay. And let's see the back. Can we see the back?
No, the back has got a big Be Now on the back. I don't want to turn around.
Okay, so you're going to wear that for the rest of the summer. How many of those shirts you got?
One.
All right, maybe we should do a draw. Maybe we should
have a certain amount of time, after maybe 2 or 3 weeks of wearing this shirt every day, I don't think people are going to want to get close to me. So,
well, I was going to say we should have a contest to give one away. Maybe we can give yours away after you've worn it.
Oh, nice. That'll be, that's perfect gift, right? Whoever buys it, you don't want to know, right?
Oh, okay. All right, Don. So
it's funny. I'm going to tell you this story. It's like my wife sells, stuff online, right? So she had this, she was selling a pair of shoes. One guy came back and he said, like, do the shoes smell? And she said, no, they're all clean and everything else. He said, oh, too bad. I like them when they're smelling. I'm like, okay, that's the type of guy you don't want to be selling to.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Don. Let's get caught up on what's going on in Brampton.
All right, let's go. What are we talking about today?
Well, so we're going to talk about obviously Ebikes. That's what we've been promoting, and I kind of convinced. You know what, Don? I forgot to shave today. I'm just noticing on my screen. Yeah, sorry about that.
Well, this is not the first time you forgot to shave by going on Be Now. This is not like it's a regular occurrence. So
yeah, and so we're going to talk about e-bikes because I've been e-biking a lot, and maybe as a biker, this kind of look, the rough kind of look, fits.
Not when you're riding an e-bike. If you're riding a Harley, okay, fine, it's acceptable. But an e-bike, I don't think anyone's going to be intimidated by you riding an e-bike with a beard.
But there's been a lot happening in the city. We can't talk about everything. I know the mayor has been trying to convince regional council to get on board with kind of putting their names behind a $11 billion infrastructure investment in the region before the region splits. But Mississauga kind of said, no way, Mayor Brown.
Well, the interesting thing about that took place last Thursday, right? That council meeting last Thursday. So we had 2 councillors from Brampton side with Mississauga in turning down that motion. Did we not?
Yeah, and I just don't understand that. We don't need to name the councillors now. I don't understand that. And apparently, it's something that these 2 councillors do on a regular basis, side with Mississauga. I don't get it. So,
that's something that we're going to delve into as this gets further along. Why two councillors from Brampton are siding with Mississauga in regards to the allocation of money towards the breakup. This to me doesn't make any sense, because all you're doing basically is telling your taxpayers in Brampton that you represent that they're going to pay more taxes because Mississauga will not pay the fair share.
Well, but we all know what's happening here, right? The $11 billion, everybody agrees, needs to be spent on infrastructure, sewer, water, I don't know, whatever else. That's a lot of money.
Well, roads, you got the police.
And it needs to be spent if we want to meet our housing targets. So nobody denies it needs to be spent. But Mississauga is basically going on record. That has nothing to do with us. If you want to spend it, Brampton, go ahead. But it's more money than all the municipalities in Ontario have been spending on infrastructure for the entire year. Well, obviously, the 11 million is over 10 years. So everybody's kind of making their mark to the province to basically say, the Mayor of Brampton is trying to get people to commit. So regardless of what happens in Brampton, we know that it has to be paid. And Mississauga is basically, I think they're saying, hey, the province of Ontario needs to step up here, which at the end of the day is all of the taxpayers in Ontario, not just Peel Region, right? So,
right.
I know Mayor Crombie criticizes Mayor Brown, but at the end of the day, taxpayers have to pay this. It's just which taxpayers.
Well, yeah, and the other thing too, I mean, is this has been going on for quite a while. But Mayor Bonnie Crombie is known as basically a NIMBY mayor. She doesn't want housing developments built up in certain areas of Mississauga, and has been that way for a long time. And now all of a sudden, she's talking about where and what we can do, and no, it's the money is not coming from Mississauga. I mean, at some point in time, these are These are things that have to be dealt with. And I know there's an interim board. I think it's 5 people that were appointed by Doug Ford, the premier, to go through the region. Let's hope somebody goes through the books and comes out with an equitable situation, because sooner or later, you know, and I know this breakup is going to cost taxpayers, whether it be in Mississauga, Caledon, or Brampton, a lot of money.
And, you know, Don, this is supposed to happen in less than 18 months. I don't see that happening. It's right now, nothing is happening, if you ask me, other than kind of banter. These 5-member committee who are making a gazillion dollars doing this.
What was it? $800,000, I think, is the number.
Well,
that
I think
heard.
The chair is basically going to get 500,000, and the other 4 are like 300 and something thousand. So it's a lot of money.
That's serious coin.
Yeah, but you know what? It's probably worth it if they do the job well. You know, they're experienced, they're seasoned professionals. You know, I think that's.
Well, here's the thing: they're politicians. Why not bring in someone like KPMG, you know, to go through numbers and go through books and take a look at? Why don't you bring in like an accounting firm? Why are you bringing in politicians?
You know what, Don? I'm not the premier, so I can't answer that.
Yeah, well, I'm not either. So, but at the same time, if you're going to do a breakup and you're going to allocate, you know, if a couple is going through a divorce, they bring in a lawyer, but a lawyer also brings in an accountant, right?
Well, I don't think I doubt that. I'm pretty sure that this committee of 5 has a budget to spend on consultants. I'm 100% sure. You can't expect 5 people to do all the work that's required here to split up the region. So there's probably staff that they all might get. I don't know. To me, it's more work than 5 people. I don't care if you work full time on this. It's more work for 5 people.
Yeah, and you know, and I know, like Darshan says, if they do the job well, optimism. Yeah, well, you know, the thing is, when it comes to, you know, public servants, I'm not slagging public servants, but, you know, when you're taking a look at something like that, you need a professional to come in. Like I said, I don't understand why they're not bringing in someone like KPMG, go through the books. You had the CAO of Peel Region, just new one a new one allocated in Brampton or in Mississauga. A new CEO was done. The past one, they have.
And the region also has a new CFO. She was introduced last week. So there's a lot of new people as well.
There's a lot of new people, but the only one who's been there for a long period of time is Nando, who is like, what is he now? He's still the chair, the interim chair?
Yeah.
So he's still there, but at the same time, you know, you're taking a look at it. Splitting a region is like, there's so many things that we talk about continually: the Peel Police, the Peel Paramedics, the water, sewage. I mean, I don't know. It's going to be one big cluster as far as.
And this is all happening while the province is also basically changing the way municipalities can generate revenues from developments, right? Which Mississauga claims that they use development charges to fund their infrastructure. Now that mechanism it looks like it's going away. And so what's Brampton supposed to do while still trying to meet their housing targets?
Yeah, and going forward, we're going to be talking with people who basically, you know, are going to be asking these questions and hopefully answering the questions as well, because, you know, and I know at the end of the day, it's Peel Region is, what's Darshan going to say here?
Darshan. We like Darshan's comments. If the region is broken up, how much will be the severance for the? Of course, they're going to get severance. Darshan. Yeah. So whatever the normal severance is for somebody, if you work 20 years, you get a big severance. If you work 2 months, you might get a couple of days. I'm assuming. So it's millions.
Well, we're talking a whole bunch of things like going forward. It's not just severance. It's, you know, like I said,
pensions and all sorts of stuff.
Everything across the board, and it's like allocation and, you know, how many projects basically are intertwined. Peel housing, that's another one, right? So anyway, that's not the topic tonight, but we sort of segued into that a little bit. So
okay, so I also, you know, on Twitter, I wanted to talk, you know, when we were thinking of having the show last week, I wanted to talk about Ontario Place, specifically the Science Center. Let me add this here. So it was interesting. Just a few minutes ago, actually, I saw MPP Kinga Surma put out a tweet commenting on a City News post talking about Ontario Place. And she kind of outlined some of the benefits of the new Ontario Place for everyone. And if you look at those lists of benefits, you don't see a spa, right? You see everything else but the spa. But from my understanding, the new Ontario Place, the main feature of this is a private spa with massive underground parking that's going to cost over.
Yeah, she doesn't put down there 600 parking spots, which what is it? We're paying $600 million of taxpayer money for.
We're paying half a hospital for parking for Ontario Place.
Yeah, which is insanity. What's a marina with inclusive boating? What does that mean?
I don't know, but I don't have a boat, so
yeah.
Clearly I'm not included.
What does inclusive boating mean? You could bring your canoe there, or you can bring your...
I don't know.
Okay. I did see her on a video just released today on social media, Twitter, I think it was. She was pointing out to someone that, there's a beachfront. There's people at the beach, actually on the beach. And she's saying, what we're going to do is we're going to move all these stones out of here, and we're going to put stones on here so people can actually dip their feet in the water. Meanwhile, people are actually doing exactly that. So what are you doing by replacing stones with stones?
Well, maybe she was referring to the hot stone massage inside.
If people are enjoying a natural beach, why would you take that natural beach and transform it with artificial stones so that they can dip their toes into it? It makes no sense whatsoever.
Okay, so this is one of the pictures that I guess the province is putting out on what it's going to look like. It looks kind of modern, futuristic. Palm trees enclosed in glass domes and green rooftops. But to me, that doesn't look like nature. It just looks like something very artificial. And I think people in Toronto, I guess we're not considered Toronto people, but we, all the GTA will go down there. And I want to see nature. And which brings me to the last point on this topic is Ontario Place, which I, for the life of me, cannot understand why they would move Ontario Place.
Aren't they putting? Didn't Doug Ford say that basically he's already allocated that to leasing out to developer to build housing?
Like, we have tons of places to put housing. You don't have to destroy a huge community asset for more housing. You look around every corner on every street across the GTA, you can find land for more housing. You don't have to destroy this asset that's been there for a few generations now. That I remember going there as a kid. I would think what we need is to refurbish it. But we also, the population of the GTA over the last 50 years has more than doubled. We can easily support 2 Ontario places, one on the east side, one on the west side, not one beside the spa so they can get more traffic to the spa.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to move the entire Science Center to, I don't understand the rationale. I grew up in the Flemington Park area. I didn't grow up there. I moved there when I moved from Montreal. I actually stayed in Thorncliffe Park, which was close to where the Ontario Science Center is, Don Mills and Eglinton. And that area, it was busy. I mean, that was a busy spot, the Ontario Science Center, and it's growing up now. But I mean, it's not. Somebody mentioned one of the people on the radio saying it's difficult to get to. Difficult to get to from where? I mean, if you're in the east end of the area, the Scarborough, it's not that hard to get to. If you're coming from Mississauga.
No, but that's why I'm saying, it is, if you live in Oakville and you're a school in Oakville and you want to come out to the Science Center, that's a whole day trip for that.
Yeah, of course.
Although it is a whole day trip to Science Center, right? It's not a half day trip. But that's why I say it's like we need one on the west side as well. Like not everything has to be Toronto centric. There's enough demand for facilities like this that we can easily support 2 of these.
Actually, what I'd like to see is, have you seen that new big MGMI in Vegas?
Ooh, yes, the $2.5 billion.
$2 billion for that, and it's like
$2 billion US.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Having that on the Ontario Place, that big eye, that would be cool.
Yeah, I'd go for that. $2 billion.
Yeah,
that's like 4 parking lots, right?
Exactly,
4 parking lots.
And it's what that big eye is. It's a stadium that can hold concerts and everything else. So it can seat, I think it's up 16,000 people inside of that. Plus the thing rotates. You got eyes. It's pretty cool.
It's unbelievable, actually.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's like a planetarium, but in reverse almost, right?
Well, we used to have a planetarium actually in Toronto, and Mike Harris actually closed the planetarium. I used to go down there all the time. Planetarium was cool.
The McLaughlin Planetarium.
Yep.
Okay, but now let's move on to our main topic.
Move on.
Stay on this forever. E-bikes. My favorite topic. So have you seen my social media posts about e-bikes, Don?
I have seen your social media posts, and the reason why we wanted to touch on this topic was I saw an article on Twitter recently stating that a lot of the cities are having trouble now, with the different modes of transportation that people are choosing, whether it be bikes, e-bikes, walking, scooters. They're having a lot of problems because the sidewalks are not wide enough, the roads are dangerous, and they're having a lot more congestion on the sidewalks because in North America the sidewalks are only 3 foot wide, and they're having a problem with accidents and so on and so forth because people are looking at alternate modes of transportation rather than paying, X amount of dollars, 100,000 for a big truck, and they can get to and from work with a lot more ease with e-bikes and other modes of transportation, whether it be like e-scooters and so on and so forth. So that's an interesting concept, and we touched on that. We said, what are city planners thinking? Because it seems to be a growing trend where people are using e-bikes. You have an aging population. We mentioned this before, that e-bikes are a way to go, and they seem to be outselling e-cars like, I think, 3 to 1. So people are buying e-bikes more than they are e-cars because, number one, they're cheaper. You can go, and it's like they use them for those small inter-travel things that, we talked about, buying groceries and so on and so forth. So, we started talking. We said, well, they're city planners. Do they have that much foresight to see a trend and say, hey, we should adjust the way we think about cars and everything else? And I mentioned Paris. Paris is changing dynamically. Even Montreal is putting in more bike lanes, and they're putting in less lanes for cars. So this is something that we talked about in regards to Peel Region. Well, not Peel Region anymore, but Brampton and city planning.
Well, and also the the election in Toronto that just happened, to me, that was almost a referendum on biking, right? Because Olivia Chow obviously is pro bikes. I think she even bikes to City. She's planning on biking to City Hall, and she did as a councillor. Whereas the ex-police chief wanted to rip them out. So we'll see what happens in Toronto. I think they will set the kind of the standard, maybe. But a city like Brampton, we're not as big as Toronto, which means it's actually should be a little easier to implement things citywide than Toronto. And so I've been biking for the last 3 months, 2.5+ months, almost exclusively. And the primary reason was, this is what happened to my car about a week after I bought my e-bike. So I've ordered a new car, but it's probably not going to be here for another few weeks. So I took the opportunity to, we have 2 cars, which is a problem in itself, right? We shouldn't all need 2 cars. So we have to share a car. So I just said, you know what, if I don't need the car, I'll use my bike. I don't care if it's raining or not. So I took the opportunity, and most of us, I know, because I've been a car, I've driven probably, I was trying to do the math, probably in my lifetime, 750,000 kilometers. And in the last couple months, I've probably ridden 1,500 to 2,000 kilometers. So I'm still by far a driver, and I don't have the experience. And I know lots of people in Brampton have biked a lot more than me. So this is my first impression of the experience. And the reason I wanted to go with an e-bike versus a bike is because I hate hills. That's what makes biking difficult and sweaty and hard. I remember with my kids, I had a trailer on my bike, and I'd have 2 kids in the trailer, and I'd have to go up a hill. And by the time I reached the top of the hill, I'm like exhausted. But you still got a ways to go to get to the park, and then you dread coming back home, right? Because you got to go back up that same hill. So the e-bike really smoothens out the city. You can. It's not a lot of people say, oh, you're cheating, right? But no, you're actually pedaling, but it's pedal assist.
No, they've done studies and say that basically someone who's using an e-bike is actually getting almost the same amount of exercise as someone who's just biking.
Right. And one of the reasons for that is because you actually go further distances, right?
Exactly.
So my average distance when I get on the bike is between 10 and 20 kilometers to wherever I'm going. And then I got to come back. If I would never have done that on a regular bike, that is just exhausting.
So here's the thing that we talked about, Faz. We talked about if e-bikes are the trend, are city planners working for that trend? That's number one. Number two, if that's the trend, why isn't, because, we mentioned the federal government, authorized, and they were giving, Brampton a bus, an electric bus. Why isn't that trend transferring into and saying, okay, we want to get drivers off the road, which is their message all the time. We want to have people active transportation. In Brampton, we have a high rate of diabetes. Well, what's the solution to that? Exercise is one of the big ones, right? So if you want that, why are there not incentives to buy e-bikes like a rebate? Because that would be a huge game changer.
Yeah, and I know the province of BC put together a rebate. I think they only funded it with a couple $1 million, and the rebate was between, I think, $250 to $1,250, depending on your income level. And there's now a waiting list because it was just taken up so quickly. So that is a challenge. I think $1,250 a rebate is crazy. That's way too much on it. But
I think
somebody who's low income.
No, but I
mean,
low
income, and you want to make it equitable, because these things are like about $2,000 and up. You can get them cheaper, but you also want to.
Yeah, I mean, if they gave a rebate of $250 to $500 or something like that, I mean, to me that's reasonable, right? Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to move people to alternate transportation. But when you do that, if it's a successful thing, cities have to change as well. Like I said before, Paris. They took the Champs-Élysées and they turned that into basically now it's only one way up and down with the cars, and the rest are bike lanes. And over in Europe, the sidewalks are not 3 foot wide in Europe. We're talking 10, 15, depending on which city you go to. There's major avenues for people to be able to use alternate modes.
So one way to address because you got to think about it. If you're lower income, you're probably using public transit, and you probably don't have $2,000 to just test on an experimental thing called an e-bike, right? That's why I think it's equitable to give a large subsidy there. But the subsidy doesn't have to be cash, right? It could be transit credits, right? That way because I could see ways of people to scam this, right? You say you live in Brampton, but right? But a transit credit, you got to use it, right? And so you're not paying cash. You might be losing some revenue.
It could depend on your income, right? So, I mean, everyone files a tax return. You could basically do that as well, right? Depending on.
But the transit credit doesn't actually cost money from the city's bank account, right? It's just a ride on a bus. Yeah, it'll cost the transit system because instead of getting
transit system is 60 to 70% funded by taxpayers' money anyway.
Yeah, but still, it's revenue lost. But in Brampton, it's not. We don't have an issue with people using our transit. Like we
have a higher transit rate than anybody else going on.
Yeah. So there's lots of ways to do this, but it's definitely something that needs to be looked at. But let me give you my experience. So one of the nice things about the e-bike is I also have no issue going out at night or going out in rain, because the bike gives you confidence that you can easily get back home quickly if you wanted to. Right? You just increase the pedal assist. But riding late at night, with headlights, is like a liberating experience, Don. I have to tell you, it's especially.
You've never ridden a bike with a headlight before?
No, I've ridden at night. When I was a kid, I didn't have a headlight. Couldn't afford a headlight.
What do you mean you couldn't afford? They had the headlights that attached to the wheel.
Yeah, you put like a 8-volt battery that lasts 20 minutes.
And it actually, when the wheel turned, it would actually generate electricity.
Yeah, but that was $20.
They were pretty good lights.
That was like $20, but that's a lot of money, Don, for a kid. Anyways, if
I had one, you could afford one, because I had no money whatsoever.
Well, I don't know about that, Don. Anyways, so it's a beautiful experience, Don.
You just have to make sure, and we mentioned this before as well, and Mike Dancy has mentioned it too. I mean, the drivers in Brampton, I mean, there's a lot of times that I'm not using the bike lane, and I've seen people where they're using the sidewalks for scooters, e-scooters.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I'll show you. There's a picture I have at the very end. Everybody needs to see this because I just saw it on Twitter.
Well, you can see the picture up right now, and you wonder, okay, why is that sidewalk only 3 foot wide instead of 6 to 8 feet wide?
Well, but so you also see a path there, right? I am like really impressed with the path system in some parts of Brampton. Not my area of Brampton. We've forgotten about paths in my area of Brampton, but like the older Brampton,
The only problem I have with the path system that they have now in the older part of Brampton, there's no signage. I've actually biked through certain areas, and I want to go to Chinguzi Park, and I've taken the wrong turn and ended up all the way back where I started from. Instead of having a little signpost that says this way to Chinguzi or this way to the, Queen Street South,
And there's a lot of feeder paths to a main path, but you don't know which one's the feeder. And even using GPS, sometimes there's like 3 paths crossing each other, and it's like you don't know which way you're supposed to be going. I'm trying slowly figuring it out, but 100% wayfinding with all these paths needs to be really improved.
Well, all they have to do is put signage up, along the trail, and it's not difficult at major intersections. I know some trails that have been in other countries, again, over in Europe, they have trail signage system. I mean, it's as simple. You put a pole with a sign up. How difficult can it be, right?
Well, what I wanted to point out in this photograph, Don, so there's a bike path on the road.
Yep.
There's a path, which is like, I love the paths because you're completely in nature on the paths and you can get from A to B much quicker. But why is the curb high?
Yeah, well, that transition? A lot of people ask,
I can understand maybe they think a car will go up there, but you don't have to make it the width of a car. You could just make it a path width. So, and everywhere in the city's like that. There's very few places that are not like that.
Well, don't forget the bike lane was put in after the path and everything else was in there.
But still, that's been like that for years, right? So
yeah, well,
and I'm a little disappointed in all the people who've been biking in Brampton for a long time, because that's a problem that to me should have been fixed a long time
ago. They have the same problem on Vauden when you cross Vauden going
it's
to
everywhere. It's everywhere. This is not
Main Street
where I am here.
North Park is the same thing. You got to get off the bike and you can't sort of
and also
you can't do a jump.
In this spot, there's a path on the opposite side of the road. So how are you supposed to get across the road?
Well, that's the whole thing. You gotta wait for traffic and everything else, right?
Right. So, there's no, like, maybe the crosswalk should be, I don't know. It's like there's no thought.
They have that all of Brampton. The trails coming down Dixie by the Gurdwar, just Sandalwood and stuff like that. They're all like that. You have to sort of dismount and sort of go to the light and everything else. So
okay. So here's another problem.
E-scooters,
a lot of these public bike racks. This is at I forget the name of the recreation center. But I'm looking to lock my bike, and this is what I got to deal with.
Yeah.
So to me, these scooter companies, they're private scooter companies. They should be setting up their own stations to put these e-scooters, not using public bike racks for these things.
Yeah,
if it's a private device, sure, just like my bike is a private device. I mean, like a personal device. But if you're a company making money and selling, my problem with putting my bike there is people are going to think my bike is like these scooters, and they're going to start fidgeting with my bike.
Well, the other thing too is I've seen these e-scooters attached to stop signs. I've seen them attached to around the bus shelters. They have the same thing for bikes. I've seen them attached there. I've seen them dumped in there's some in the side of they're all over the place.
Well, and there's sometimes people leave them in the middle of a sidewalk.
Right.
It's like, really?
Yeah, I've seen that too. Yeah. So anyway, that's a pilot project for that. We'll deal with that. Yeah.
So this is Chinguzi. This is a multi-lane path, and this is where somebody decides to park overnight because this was early in the morning. The reason there's a curb there is because this used to be a farmhouse on the left side. They redeveloped it into townhouses, but I guess they didn't change the curb. And I don't know if they are going to change it. So I tweeted and complained to the city of Brampton. I don't think that's the way you're supposed to make complaints. You're supposed to call 301. But like within a week, I saw these things pop up. So I don't know if it's because I tweeted or just because somebody at the city noticed as well. But, that is an extreme example, but you can find that across the city just for pedestrians on sidewalks where cars are overhanging the sidewalk. It's terrible. Even if you're walking, right? I don't ride it too much on sidewalks unless I absolutely have to. But this is just outrageous. I think it's like this person thinks they're the center of the universe.
Well, that happens all the time in Toronto as well and all over the place. But the thing is, it's like you can't have things like that. And that's what I keep saying. You see how wide that's more than a 3-foot sidewalk, but they should extend it over. And then if you have all sorts of different modes of transportation other than cars, then you have the ability to have people walking, strolling, using the e-bikes and using the scooters, and you're still not on the road.
Yeah. Okay. And it's actually nice going across the city. I've never seen this in my neighborhood, so when I see it, I took this the other day. Apparently, these are going up all over the city. They're effective in slowing people down because nobody wants to hit these things. First of all, it reminds people what the speed limit is. So I actually like these signs, but I don't think they have them in the winter, obviously, right?
No, I've seen them. I think last year I saw a couple in certain neighborhoods and stuff like that. I think some neighborhoods asked for that because they wanted traffic calming, and they didn't put traffic calming. So these are the alternative to the traffic calming.
Yeah.
The other thing too we wanted to mention was okay, we'll mention it after. Don't worry about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, and this is where planning really needs to come into play. This is Derry Road, so it's actually in Mississauga. I was coming on a multi-lane path. I keep going across the bridge, which turns into concrete, and then it ends abruptly like this. And you can see there's the barrier there, so I can't get off of here. I got to backtrack, and then I got to cross Derry to get on the other side where there's a multi-lane path. There's like no signage anywhere saying this is what you're going to run into.
Yeah, like we mentioned before, there's a lot of paths that end with the the dead curve and stuff like that. But there's so many different things, and this is just the tip of the iceberg on a whole bunch of different things. If you're going to change a city to a more active transportation, it involves just more than putting paint on a road. Paint on a road, like Gil Pelanosa says, is not infrastructure. You have to have protected bike lanes for people to be able to use those bike lanes and feel safe.
Although paint on a road does make me feel a little better compared to what we have now, and Mississauga is actually better than that than Brampton.
Well, paint on a road doesn't make me feel safe, and I've been biking since I was 3 years old, and it's like I would not want my kid in a bike lane with just paint.
No, I agree.
In Brampton.
My kids, no, I would never tell a kid to ride their bike to school.
But you want a more active transportation, and you want kids to be able to bike to school. When I grew up, we walked and biked to school, no problem. Yeah, that's what you want.
100%. Every school should have a trail map on how to get to their school through trails.
Right, and it's
if you don't have trails, to me, that's a priority number one for that school. Get trails.
Yeah, and it's like you want that, you preach that. And, politicians on all levels preach that. But at the same time, preaching is great. But you know what? Action is a little bit louder than words. And that's where Montreal is actually way ahead of any city in North America. They are transforming Montreal. I mean, they were the first to have the metro and everything else in 1960.
I actually think Montreal has the most bike lanes per capita.
Yes, they do. And they're transforming more and more lanes right now. So you have your, obviously you have your metro system there, you have your bus system there, and now you have an interconnected system of bike lanes throughout the city, and they're adding more, just like Paris. So,
yeah. So before I get to the last slide, it's going to cause all sorts of controversy potentially.
Oh yeah.
Some of the other benefits of e-biking is just I feel so much healthier, Don.
You don't look healthier.
Sorry?
You don't look healthier.
I don't. Okay, well, I got a haircut. But yeah, it's just incredible feeling to know that you've pedaled. Yeah, it's assisted.
No, of course.
But right, and
any kind of exercise is better than no exercise at all.
Sorry, I did have some more pictures. So, whenever you order a pizza, I don't like getting a delivery guy to come because I don't want to pay the extra fees you got to pay. But I ended up driving my car, gas guzzler car or e-car, whichever one it is. And still, it doesn't feel right to do that, to go get a pizza. So I went with my bike and picked up my pizza, and it was like, wow, this is amazing. This is how it's supposed to be. And then on the left side there, I've seen a lot of these places in the city, but when you actually ride there, you can appreciate it a lot more. So that's the Francis Cheney Bridge that crosses the 410 just north of Williams Parkway. A lot of people in the city have never seen this bridge.
Well, because they don't bike. You got to access it through bikes.
Yeah, but you can also see some graffiti there and all as well. So these are some just really benefits of just biking is things slow down for you in terms of your appreciation of what's out there. Nature, it's mental health benefits. I could go on and on.
Well, the other thing is too, you see a lot more. You see the landscape and the garbage, and you see different things that you don't see when you're driving a car.
You see people more.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have conversations. If I'm on a trail and there's people on it, I slow down and you can see facial expressions. You give each other a smile.
Here's
And
Trudy talking about her public school in Leaside that teaches the bike. Yeah, that used to be the way it is, and that's something that maybe schools can continually do on a regular basis going forward. But they should be doing that. But I don't know if any school system in the Peel District School Board, I don't know what they're teaching or if they can teach that. But that's something that that used to happen before.
Yeah, and by the way, in Canada, or this, I'm not sure this might be just Ontario. E-bikes are limited in terms of what they can
Power
do.
wise, yes.
So in the US, that you can get bigger motors, and in Canada, you're limited to a 500 watt motor, and I think the speed is also limited.
Yeah,
You can pedal faster, but the battery will only take you up so fast. It's fast enough, right? Somebody that was on an e-bike, one of the delivery guys, which we'll show next, passed me. I was going full tilt, probably over 30 kilometers an hour. And an e-bike guy on his e-bike without pedaling was passing me. So clearly he's got an e-bike that I don't think is legal. He probably got it from the US.
Well, in the States, you can get the 750 watt. In Canada, it's 500 watt.
Yeah. I actually think if you're riding an e-bike, and I know I ride an e-bike, you should have to pass some kind of course or license. It should be licensed, because these are definitely dangerous vehicles.
Well, put it this way. I've heard a lot of bike advocates say it doesn't work, but listen, I grew up, and when you had a bike, you had to get a license for a bike. And part of the license, getting the license for a bike, was to track the bike if it was stolen, number one. Number two is teach you rules of the road and stuff like that. I've heard all sorts of bike, no, they shouldn't do this. It doesn't, blah, blah, blah. You know what? Once you start off at a young age to be able to understand the rules of the road and, respect the rules of the road, it's something that goes on forever, because, we have people now that we see that, even bikes, they're going through stop signs. They're doing what they want to do. So
they're riding all over the sidewalks, even though,
and it's like, you're not supposed to ride in the sidewalks. I get it. But I see people now, and they're riding those little scooters on the sidewalks, and they're pushing the people off the sidewalks so that they can go by. And I'm like, if I was on the sidewalk and one of those go by, I'd say, no, you get over.
Oh, I thought you said you'd like knock them over.
No, I just tell them, sorry, but you're not supposed to be on the sidewalk, right? But that's the rules of the road. People don't know that.
Yeah.
So,
I definitely think e-bikes should be licensed. Like, you spend enough on it too, right? And even insurance wise, at the Bike Brampton, there was the bike lawyer there, and I was asking him, I'm a little concerned if I hit somebody on the street. He said, actually, 99% of accidents, it's a car hitting the cyclist. But I don't think that lawyer really understands what I was asking. It's like, from my personal just state of mind, I want to know that if I get in an accident, I don't necessarily care about me, but the other person is going to be hurt if it's a pedestrian.
Well, put it this way. I've seen those e-scooters that was going up Main Street and turning onto Vauden. And one of those e-scooters, because I looked and I'm checking to make sure that there's nobody, turning. One of those e-scooters just came zipping right through and didn't even bother looking, right? And it was right through the green light. There was a walk sign, but I had the green light. There was no one crossing, right? And because they're right there in the corner. And then just out of the corner of my eye, this thing came whipping by on the sidewalk and crossed the road, right? So, yeah, you got to be cognizant, but it's like, I'm looking at the road, I'm looking at the civilians, I'm looking at, there's a whole bunch of different factors, and people just think that, well, you know what, I'm on here, everybody's got to stop for me, right? So.
Yeah. Okay, we got a few more comments. Let's see if we can watch out for coyotes on the trail. You know what? That's not an issue for me. Maybe at night, you're right.
Carry a sidearm.
Nice, carry sidearm, e-scooter. Okay, so, and then final slide, is it? Oh, nope, not final slide yet. So one of the other benefits is you can actually haul stuff with an e-bike comfortably. If this was a regular bike and I was this Costco, I'm at Costco here. You know, the Costco. Well, you don't go to Costco
I don't go to Costco.
for good reason because you can never find parking. But there's no other bikes at the Costco, Don. So I've got exclusive use of the parking facilities. But if you were to haul a trailer full of stuff from Costco back home 10 kilometers, that's up and down a hill. That's
I
you
was
got to be an
about to
athlete.
say, if you're shopping at Costco, you're not filling that little thing with anything.
Well, I'm not buying, rolls of paper towel and stuff and toilet
Well,
paper. I'm buying like some bulk
what are you
fruit.
buying? Like 15 steaks, and you're going to throw them in there? What's
No. Actually, there was some meat. I bought some halal chicken. Costco sells halal chicken. It's a good deal there, actually. Yeah, it's like again. I know. Oh, on the way back, I stopped into my parents, split it up because there's no way I can eat all that stuff. I bought, the big packaging, which I never would do. I would drive by them and say, I don't have time to go and drop it off, but I'm riding. I go in there, chat with them. Some of the other benefits of biking is you spend a lot more time with people because you want to catch your breath a little bit. So now let's see if this is the final one. Final slide. So this is I saw today on Twitter. This was Union Station last night.
Yeah.
So a bunch of clearly Brampton people because I've seen this on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I think, students who have e-bikes and they're delivering for the delivery services in Toronto because there's a lot more, I guess, demand for that in Toronto and things are closer. So you could probably make more money. But we have a problem now, right? These guys, I think they're 100% guys, are clogging up our GO train service, especially on the weekends. If you come back on the weekends, this is what you're seeing is trains are full of these. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I got back from Madrid, and you see all throughout Madrid now, they used to have them before where they were bike couriers, but now everyone's got an e-bike and everyone is wearing one of those Uber backs, like you can see the pack on the guy, that's to carry food and stuff like that. They're all over the place.
Yeah. Well, in Asia as well, this is normal, right? I think we're now catching up to it.
Yeah,
but
because they used to do cars, but now they're doing more Uber things with the e-bike.
Well, in Asia they do the little scooter, the motorized them like scooters.
Yeah.
But one of the e-bikes in the photograph there, I took it on me, see if I can add it on. That's that e-bike in the front there. It's a bike from the same manufacturer as me, so it's not a cheap bike, right? These guys.
No, it's a rad bike. That's a rad bike.
Yeah, so they're spending good money on these things. Yeah. So it's got to be lucrative for them as well. So, if these guys are making money with their e-bikes, to me, it'll continue to be popular. And I know people see those kinds of pictures and they want to be associated with that. Like I feel when I ride my bike, I'm a trailblazer because there's nobody riding e-bikes for transportation.
Well,
right?
put it this way.
Those guys are doing it to make money.
They're not doing it in North America. In Europe, yeah, they're far ahead. But in North America, we're always far behind. And here's the challenge that we talked about, or I talked about before. Are city planners actually taking a look down the road for the changing modes of transportation? Or are they just continually looking at the same old model? And we bring back Ontario Place with the 600 parking lot, or what is it, $600 million?
600 million is thousands of parking spaces. One of the biggest parking lots in the world.
Instead of making people go to Ontario Place as an alternative transportation option, what they're doing is they're enabling that same North American attitude of drive your Ford 250 F50 gas guzzling piece of garbage that's clogging up our roads to Ontario Place, instead of actually walking, biking, if you want to enjoy nature.
Even making a subway, if Doug Ford loves subways, extend the subway out there. The
or
Ontario
a BRT
line
or something, there, right? But it's like, why have such a big space of a public space turned into an asphalt parking lot instead of making that, trees, parks, and the ability for people to actually go and enjoy that space?
Yeah.
It makes no sense. It makes no sense to turn it into a parking lot.
I agree, Don.
But anyway, that's a challenge. Are we going to continue on the road, or is the challenge, or is the change of what people are buying now and using as transportation modes going, or how is it going to affect how our cities develop? That's the key.
And we haven't even talked about the benefits to the environment. We're definitely not doing anything to address climate change. Everybody's talking. The politicians are putting ineffective programs out there. this to me is something you can do and personally feel like you're doing something, assuming you're reducing your car
Well,
trips.
climate change is one thing, but at the same time, it's like develop. I forget which city is instituting this, but they're adding I think it's New York City. They're adding a charge if you have a big car in a certain part of New York City or bring it into park, you're going to get charged more, whether you like it or not. It's too bad. And this is the challenge, because cars 20, 30, 40 years ago were not as big as they are now. Now I see some of these, trucks on the road where people are driving. They're bigger than some of the APCs I drove when I was in the forces, for Christ's sakes, right?
Yeah.
And these are personnel carriers that we would use out in the field. They're bigger than that. And it's like when you go into a parking lot, I love these people. They park at the front and they're taking 2 spots. And it's like, why are you making these cars so big? You don't see that. You don't see those big cars in Europe. They don't sell them there because the streets are narrow, they're older, and number one, you can't park them anywhere, right? And it's like we have to change the way we're thinking. Car manufacturers are basically taking over North America, and they sell our cars over here, and they don't sell the same cars. Ford does not sell the Ford F-150 trucks over in Europe.
Yep. And I agree, Trudy. Yeah, we need a little bit of retro feel, just kind of harken back to, I'm not going to say the good old days, but harken back to our childhood, right? To what we remember. I remember going there for lunch, and there's little big round pits. You'd take out your lunch, you'd eat it, and then you'd go to one of the, the thing with the hair, right?
Well, they used to have outdoor barbecue areas too, right? So you could bring your barbecue and do a barbecue there, the pits and everything else. Having a parking lot that big take over most of Ontario Place for a spa and change a beach with this and that, like, it makes no sense. But at the same time, it's the e-bike challenge and the different modes of transportation and everything else. When I actually, because I know I talked to you before about the bike that you have, and I looked at the same type of bike, but when I went to go order, they were out of stock, and they're gonna. That's how much these things are selling now. There's plenty of manufacturers of e-bikes in different modes and models, but they're, like I said before, they're outselling the EV vehicles like 3 to 1. And with an older population, it gives a lot of more older people mobility and the ability to be able to go distances without actually getting into the car. Because let's face it, the insurance for cars is only rising. The hassle and everything else that goes with cars. If you really want one, you can go rent one, right?
And I'm not necessarily also telling people to get rid of a car.
No,
Some
some people
you're still going to be paying the same insurance, but I would love for me and my wife to get down to one car at some point. The kids have finally all left.
Yeah.
Actually, today's the first day where we have no kid living in our house right now. That's going to change in 2 weeks again, but we've got 2 weeks of no kids. One car is more than enough for us. You just think of how much money you would save by not having two.
Well, that's the thing. And people take a look at it, and even I take a look at it and say, I'm paying this, how much for insurance a year? Right? And it's like, if you're not driving on a regular basis, it's like, okay, why am I paying this much money? Right.
Yep.
So
okay, Don, we are way over time.
All right. Well, we're making up for last week, right? So yeah,
well, that's right. So we can go longer. We can go a full hour.
You want to go? I don't want to go a full hour with you. I've had enough of you already.
Fine. I got to eat anyways.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. All right. So we will see you next Tuesday. Thank you for joining us, and that's it.
Happy e-biking.
Happy e-biking. Go look at e-bikes. See what they're. There's a lot of different companies out there, so check them out.
Can I hit the button now, Don?
You can hit the button.